Players today don't just compete on a field, they compete also on social media platforms such as Twitter. In a recent study with Gaia Rubera from the Department of Marketing, we studied the behavior of a group of users, and in particular we studied the way they decide to create content. We looked at, more specifically, at players of the championship from the soccer championship in US, and we look at how users decide to write Twitter toward these players. We noticed that what is interesting is that not only it's the behavior of players outside, so the performance of the players on the field that affects the decision to write content toward them, but it's also their behavior on Twitter, on the platform, that makes people decide whether or not and whom to send those tweets. We then went and looked more in detail, and we discovered that whenever a player writes a tweet, she is able to increase the number of tweets that she receives by about 25%. And this 25% is interesting because it comes not just from an increase, an expansion of demand, so the demand for social media and the interest of users to write these tweets, but it also comes at the expense of other players. So basically players are competing for basically the same, a group of tweets that are out there. And of course this behavior, this competition happens mostly from players that share the same characteristics, such as, for example, players of the same team will actually have a higher competition as opposed to players that play for different teams. And not only that, what we are trying to kind of discover now is whether other characteristics that are also belonging to these players are playing a role in this type of competition. For example, whether the attractiveness of a player or the age of a player or other very personal characteristics are actually kind of playing a role in the eyes of these users who might decide to write more to a specific player than to other players that have different characteristics. In general, this type of studies, I think, can be called big data studies that actually, belong to this big data research, not just because of the size of the database that we are using. It's a huge size, of course, millions of observations. Mainly, it's because of the detail, the type of observation that we are using, the microeconomic detail of the data.